I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast, episode number 42. This one's a great episode. It's with UFC fighter Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman, otherwise known as Hot Sauce Holtzy. He's from here in Knoxville, Tennessee, but is a world-renowned fighter, and it was great to sit down and chat with him. I was also very lucky in having UFC expert Adam Kennedy on the podcast, former guest, to help usher along the conversation. I know UFC at a very top level, but I know he knows it down deep and dirty. If you'd like to learn more about Scott, follow him on Instagram at Hot Sauce Holtzy. That's HOTSAUCEHOLTZY. If you'd like to follow Adam, follow him on Instagram at Not Edward Idol. NOTEDWARDIDOL. Our sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, social media consultation company. They do work for companies big and small, from a t-shirt to a website for a major company. If you'd like to learn more about them, visit them online at feralgiant.com or any social media / or at Feral Giant. Without much further ado, here's my conversation with Scott.
And they sit in chairs and they look so at ease. I'm like, I never know what to do. No. Like I'm always shifting and I don't know what to do.
I'd say you'll probably have to use a couple different positions.
Yeah,
we're gonna be
I'm
sitting
that guy.
For a little bit.
I'll cross this leg and then like 5 minutes I want to cross this leg and it's a whole thing.
I'm the same way. I'll slump, then I'll sit up straight, then I'll try to cross my leg, then my knee will hurt.
I'm getting to the point to where I'll sit in the same spot for like 30 minutes, and then when I stand up, I'm just like, no, why did I not get up? Why did I not move? Everything hurts. Everything's popping.
Yep.
How old are you? You're 40? You're 40 now?
I'll be 41 soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I had somebody at Pet Safe the other day think I was 32.
Hey.
And I wanted to ask them how high they were. I had a drunk girl at Rhythm and Bloom say I was 27. I was like, you are drunk. Like, you are drunk.
You could be a grizzled 27.
Yeah.
You could be like a 27-year-old who like lived on the street for just a little
hard,
bit.
Hard
just a
27.
Yeah.
Just a hard 20.
You had like a month
That's
on the
street.
street.
That's going to be my mantra from now. I look like a hard 27.
Yeah.
Nobody will understand that reference. But
You gotta say, it's just the beard. If I shave this beard, then I'll look like a fresh 27.
yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I got the chubby cheeks. I would look like I was 27 if I shaved the beard. I can't do it. Too much chin and no.
Are we going? Are we capturing?
Yeah, we're going.
We're
Okay.
capturing this.
This is all
right.
gold, man. This is all gold.
Is my mic good?
You were good.
All right.
See, while you were talking, I was like, yep, everything looks good.
Okay.
Oh.
The only thing I didn't get to do by this was go over the rules, but I've never gone over the rules on the podcast, which the rules are, if I ever do this, that just means talking to the mic.
Okay.
I'm not being rude. I'm looking at the levels on the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we get off topic, we will circle back around, because
Okay.
I had one friend of mine who shall remain nameless, who I did a podcast on cults with. So I'm calling her out now. She was like, why are we not talking more about cults? I was like, we'll get there, but we're going to talk about, I don't know, the Geneva Convention for 2 minutes. Like, calm down. Look, we'll get there. We'll get there. And then just don't say one word where a paragraph will suffice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which I'm good at that. So,
Yeah.
So
if
not
you can,
okay.
I'm trying to think, how should we start? Do you have any, like,
I have so many things. Nothing's
So
pressing.
I have questions.
Hey, look at you.
Like, look at that.
And this is your show. Like I'm the third person fan.
I may start with a question you may not have known. Did you know there's another Scott Holtzman that is a executive vice president at Disney? Because I Googled you and it said Scott Holtzman Disney. I was like, wait, what am I missing? What am I missing here? I was like, is he in Toy Story 4? Like, did I not know that? Like, no, he's an executive vice president at Disney.
That's incredibly disappointing for me.
Oh no,
I'm just a
to get nerdy.
fighter.
Your SEO was a lot higher than his.
Okay.
Like,
I bet surely he has more surely Hot Sauce Holtzman has way more Instagram followers.
I don't even know that. He's an older guy.
Okay.
What's funny is the photo up for him was like a black and white photo looked like 1997. Like it, so you're good. Well, but it was just funny that like number 8 on the list on Google was Scott Holtzman space Disney.
Huh.
It's like, okay, that's weird.
That is weird. There's actually, because I do some of my training camp in Phoenix.
Okay.
And there's another Scott Holtzman in Phoenix also. And funny story, so USADA, United States Anti-Doping Administration, it's they do the drug testing. So we as fighters go through all the Olympic testing, you know. Like, for example, they showed up in Charlotte at 6:15 a.m. On Tuesday morning to test myself and Brian Barberina, another UFC fighter. Well, so in Phoenix, I guess somehow USADA had just Googled my address in Phoenix to send me some mail. So they always send you results and things like that. So I get this random email. Hey, man, I tracked down your email on Google, said you're a UFC fighter. I got some important mail here you probably want.
My God.
And it was mail from USADA. And I've never failed a test or anything like that. But, you know, I'm like, hey, how do you guys just randomly send mail? This is important stuff.
Yes.
And then Reebok would send him stuff out in Arizona, and the UFC even sent him stuff too. He's had to forward packages to me. But he only ended up living about 10 minutes from me in Phoenix. But
that's
what
crazy.
Are the odds?
So we're friends now. He'll text me and be like, hey, man, good fight. and then he says his wife calls him mild sauce, too.
There you go.
Hot sauce.
I like
Nice.
that. Have you ever gotten his mail?
No, never gotten his mail. No, I don't get much in Arizona.
I'm just laughing thinking, well, he must not be your size in clothes. Because if he was your size in clothes, it'd be like, no, I didn't get anything from Reebok. No, not at all.
Yeah, and then it pops up on eBay.
That's right.
Signed, because he wouldn't be lying. It is signed by Scott Holtzman.
Well, and the stuff that Reebok sent him too were because I was on the Conor McGregor Khabib card October of last year, and they had sent special edition Conor McGregor T-shirts and Khabib T-shirts with autographs on them. He could have easily taken them and probably sold them for hundreds on eBay.
Yeah, that's
he's
serious.
He must be a nice guy.
So the UFC 229, I believe, was that card.
Yep.
I'm sure it's stressful leading up to a fight in some regard. Were you able to ever take a minute to yourself just to appreciate that, like, you're on this massive card in front of this huge audience, and from a person who's not an elite athlete, very much on the outside looking in, I would think that would almost be like a dream sequence. Like, did you have any moment to take all that in?
Yeah, I think you have to. Before all the cards, you kind of have to step back from it and kind of look at it from almost like the outside looking in. And because you spend 8, 12 weeks sometimes just training for this one fight, and you're focused on that all day, every day, and this one person in this fight, and it's stressful, knowing that you're going to be locked in an octagon with millions of people watching and another highly trained guy that's literally try to kill you, take your limbs off, take your consciousness. It's stressful. So once in a while, you got to step back and be like, hey, man, this is a cool opportunity. This is the biggest card ever. It was the highest selling pay-per-view ever. or this is going to be on ESPN. This is a dream come true. I watched ESPN growing up as a kid, so sometimes you have to step back from it and realize how special it is, because you do get caught up in all the small details and the stress, and you have to be careful, or that stress and anxiety can overtake you pretty quick.
I can't even imagine all of that. And I've listened to some of your interviews after fights, and you've talked about it's hard for you to be satisfied with your performance, even in a win. Does that kind of stuff keep you up at night, or is it just thoughts that maybe don't linger all the time, of just like, well, I could have done that better, but I'm so relieved and glad I got this win?
You're always relieved and happy you've got a win, and you make more money when you win too. So when you start getting to my level, you still do it because you love it, but you also do it because it's paying your bills too. So
right.
The more money you can make, the better. But some of those losses, like I have 3 losses total, and all those losses, they weren't like lopsided. It came down to, I've lost by a round. They were all decisions. I've never been submitted, never been knocked out. They all came down to 1 round, and if you want to break it down even more, it came down to a couple moments in those rounds or a couple positions. It wasn't like I was blown out or anything like that. So, yeah, when you look back at a loss and you try to analyze it, you say, I think you'll always think about the mistakes you made in that fight. And sometimes I say it'll haunt you, because you're like, why did I do that? That one moment. For instance, the last fight I lost, maybe I went into a chokehold in the second round pretty tight, but I escaped it. But if I don't go in that chokehold, it's, arguably I could win that fight. So that's a moment in time that lasted maybe 20 seconds of a 15-minute fight that could win or lose me that fight. So sometimes those mistakes will they're on your mind for a while. But, in this game, you never get too high or too low, right? Like, you're never really as good as you think you are or as bad as you think you are. So you just got to kind of dust yourself off and keep rolling on to the next one.
Do you think that you take those moments, I would assume, like, learn from them, but is there ever a moment when you're in the middle of another fight where something feels like it's slipping into something you may have failed at before, to where you're like, oh crap, this is happening again, I need to move or shift or something?
Yeah, I think you have to. If you don't, then you don't make it very far in the sport.
Okay.
I've been in the UFC, I think now I'm coming up on my 9th fight maybe. So a lot of people come in, lose 2, and then head to the barbecue. They don't last very long. It's tough. I mean, they say that's one of the kind of unwritten rules about the UFC. A lot of people say it's hard to make it there, but it's even harder to stay there. So you have to learn, and I think when you get beat by a certain position in the fight, you go to work and make sure that doesn't happen again. I mean, it's just foolish to make the same mistake over and over.
But even in the middle of like a fight, you're still able to be aware enough to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's almost like for boxing, like you train for 1,200 rounds to fight for 12 rounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're still there's still some calmness within all that chaos out there where you're able to think, and because you train in that environment, so you get kind of used to it. But so, for instance, oh no, this guy's about to grab me this certain way. I'm not letting that happen this time.
Yeah.
I've trained to not let that happen. I'm not going to let it in. And some of that stuff's mental too. You just don't accept a position, or you don't accept a certain thing, and you just don't let it happen.
Yeah, Rogan mentioned recently, and it had never. He was talking about how he feels like MMA is more of a mental sport. It is a physical sport, but it's such a mental sport now. And he said he doesn't think a lot of people give it the credit it's due.
He's 100% right.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hardest part and what separates levels of guys is just the mental aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go through everyday life for 8 weeks sometimes, thinking about this one person who's just knocked out 10 guys in a row, or and that's stressful. So being able to get through that and actually make it to the octagon and make that walk where there's cameras in your face, there's lights, and you've only ever really seen it on TV. You've never really actually been a part of it. And then get in that octagon and see Bruce Buffer and Herb Dean, and then you look over and see Joe Rogan and Dana White and all these guys. It's, it can get scary real quick. So you have to kind of put all that aside and just focus on the task at hand, and not get too caught up in the big picture.
That level of focus, do you perceive that you had some of that naturally, or have you had to train that just like you're doing your reps in the gym, getting your brain ready for all of that?
I think you have to train that too. I don't think anybody's just some people are obviously naturally more less anxious than other people, or a little more calm under pressure, but one way that I deal with it is I try to visualize before every fight, and I visualize everything. I visualize walking into the locker room, making the walk to the cage, seeing Bruce Buffer, seeing him announce my name, looking over, seeing Dana White, boom, the bell rings, all the bad positions that I could be in during the fight, all the good positions. So then once I get there, it's almost like you're a little more comfortable because you've already made that walk 1,000 times in your head. You've already seen that arena. You've already seen the fans.
Right.
You've already seen that guy standing across from you. So I definitely think that helps.
Do you think growing up playing baseball and football, and even then going on to playing ice hockey, helped with that? Or do you also kind of look back and wonder, do you think this has honed down the focus a little bit more, or you're taking it more seriously because you don't have pads, you're not so...
No, I think that everything I've done to this point has helped me.
Okay.
I think just physically and mentally. I'm a super well-rounded athlete, and I think that's just come from all the sports I've played, and then dealing with pressure too. Like I've been in some pressure situations already from baseball, hockey, football, and all that. So it's a little different, because it's like human chess, but so it's a little different. But I've still been in some of those situations, so I've developed, certain ways of dealing with it, et cetera, et cetera. So
I was just trying to, looking back at my own very low-level competitive career, of almost getting sick to my stomach before competing. I admire that so much that you can walk out in front of thousands and do a job like that. That's incredible to me.
I'm just realizing we are a walking joke right here. So Adam was a professional wrestler.
I tried.
Okay.
He was.
Yeah.
UFC guy. And I boxed when I was in college and after college.
Okay.
Amateur. It was a little, there may have been money exchanged when we fought.
Okay.
So I don't talk about that too much.
Black market boxing.
But we are, a wrestler, a boxer, and a MMA guy walk into a grilled cheese shop instead of a bar.
And I perceive when you refer to me as a wrestler, you should do that air quotes.
No.
Like wrestler.
No. Come on, son.
Hey, it's still,
Sorry.
it's all entertainment, right? We're all in the entertainment business here. We're all veteran entertainers. So, well, I mean, I think even with wrestling or boxing, it still takes a certain amount of, guts and everything to just get out there in front of people, and to get into the ring and face another person, and to stand up in front of a crowd. It's still tough. I respect anybody who could do it.
I think a lot of it for me was squashing self-doubt.
Yeah.
Because, you almost need the self-doubt to push yourself to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But then the minute you're in there, you got to be Muhammad Ali and say,
Yeah.
I'm the greatest. I'm the one who's going to win.
Yep.
Like it's a weird flip. Switch you have to flip in your
Well,
head.
I think, and what Rogan's talking about too with that self-doubt, it's always going to be there. That self-doubt, no matter what you do or win or how you could be the champion, heavyweight champion of the world. When you're about to make that walk for the fight, you're questioning yourself.
Yeah.
So you're like, do I belong in here with this guy, or do I belong in this board meeting with this, whatever it is you're doing? There's always going to be that self-doubt, and then figuring out ways to for me, 5 minutes before I walk out, sometimes that's the most stressful time, when you're just waiting in that hallway, just waiting, and it's quiet and it's cold, and you're not sure what's about to happen. It's a uncertainty. So all you can do is fall back on your positive reassurance. When that self-doubt creeps in, you just have to remind yourself, hey man, I've done all the training. I've done everything I can do. I've been in every bad situation. All my training partners have pushed me to the limit. This guy can't do anything to you that hasn't already happened. Let's just go compete. You're fine. Let's get out there. You're gonna live. You're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Let's go get it done. But it's scary.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that process of right before the fight, where you're talking about you're in the hallway and you're about to walk out?
Yep.
Because I lose the perspective sometimes that, especially at the UFC's level, not only are they producing elite level competition, they're also producing a TV show. So they have time commitments they have to meet. Like how do they cue you of when warm ups start, when you got to go get in this position? Like is that a rigid schedule?
It's pretty rigid when the fight before you. So I'll kind of start. Usually, I'll start at the beginning. So usually, they bring you to the arena about 2 hours ahead of time on a bus. Okay. So then they bus you underneath the arena. You walk underneath into the locker rooms, and then once you get in the locker room, sometimes you'll be drug tested. Last fight I was, so they take you and I peed in a cup and everything. And once you're done with that, you're kind of free to do what you want until it's your time to fight. So you'll kind of kick around, maybe stretch, or maybe some guys take naps, some guys lay around. You can watch other fights on the TV if you want, the fights that are going on if you're later in the card. And then you get your hands wrapped. A guy will come in and wrap your hands, and the commission watches and follows you. And then as your fight draws closer, you start to warm up. Whatever your routine is. Some guys hit pads, they wrestle a little bit. Some guys jump rope, whatever it is. Some guys don't warm up at all. So then when the fight before you comes on, they'll kind of tell you when those guys walk out, they'll say, hey, if this fight ends early, you're not going to walk until 7:15.
Okay.
If this fight goes the whole time, then you'll walk at 7:20.
Okay.
So they kind of, but it's rigid. But if, like last time, I was the first fight on ESPN, so they're like, hey, 8:03, you're going to be walking out. So I knew exactly when. Okay. So that makes it a little easier. And then, they'll count you down, and when you start to leave that locker room, they flash those cameras in your face, and they stay 2 feet away from your face all the way till you hit the octagon.
Okay.
So, and they stage you up. You're in that hallway, and I think people, and like I said, it's one of the scariest parts about it, when you're 5 minutes away and you're in that hallway and it's freezing cold because your adrenaline's going too. So you're freezing to death. You're not sure what's about to happen. And then they count down for you'll get behind this curtain. They count down. Okay, 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then they bust this curtain open. All of a sudden, you go from quiet and dark and cold to lights in your face and neon lights everywhere and fans screaming, and all of a sudden it's a just a huge central nervous system overload, and you have 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're in the octagon. So you have to go from that, and you have to try and control all your emotions to in the octagon with Bruce Buffer, screaming your name. So it's a tough balance.
I have never considered that. I think you said it really well, a shock to the central nervous system. I never considered that big duality, that silence, just maybe alone with your thoughts, to now you're not alone in any regard at all. Like, certainly not asking specifics, but have you ever witnessed anybody that couldn't deal with that just lost a little bit of their mind and all that process?
Yeah, several times. Oof. I don't know at the UFC level. I've seen guys at the lower levels just take off and leave the arena. I've seen guys fake injuries. I've seen guys fake sickness.
Yeah.
I've seen guys at the UFC level throwing up in the bathrooms.
I believe it.
Warming up, and they'd be in the bathroom throwing up, because sometimes you share the locker room with other guys and teams and things like that.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of guys throwing up. I've seen guys crying. I've cried myself. So sometimes people deal with emotions in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen all sorts of it. People scream and yell. Some people are just stone cold quiet and never say a word. So people deal with it different ways, but then some of those guys go out and fight their ass off and put on a real good show. So a lot of that stuff you never see.
On the flip side, after the fight, are you allowed time to kind of decompress, or are you...
Yeah, it depends. Well, it usually takes, once they escort you out of the octagon, you have to hit some checkpoints. You have to go right to a medical tent.
Okay.
And they check you out. They do a bunch of tests. You talk with the doctors. At that point, they'll decide if your injuries are bad enough. They'll take you to the hospital.
Right.
If not, they'll pay you. They'll give you your check. You kind of sign it over. And then, depending on if you win or lose, if you lose, they usually cut you loose pretty quick, and you just head back to the locker room.
Okay.
If you win, you'll go do interviews. You go take more pictures.
Right.
So you're usually talking about an extra hour or so after you fight before you actually get back to your locker room and you can decompress. But that's the tough part about it too. Sometimes you need some time right away to decompress and you don't get it. So there have been times where they've tried to escort me to an interview or something like that, and I'll say, hey, I need a minute, and I'll bust a right turn in a little doorway or nook, and I'll sit there for a second and just try and collect myself. And sometimes I cry. There's a lot of emotion going on, and it's like a win or lose. Sometimes I've cried after the wins. I don't know if I've never cried after the losses. It's only been wins. It's weird. But the losses you try to handle like a man, and like a professional and all that. But the wins, sometimes you're just you're so happy, and there's a lot of emotion going on. So
overjoyed.
Yeah.
You're overjoyed.
Yep. And you're relieved most of all. Usually when the fight ends, you're just relieved, win or lose, because you've had 2-3 months worth of pressure, like a load of bricks on your shoulders, and then all of a sudden it's over.
Yeah.
So you're relieved more than anything.
Yeah, I can believe that. After fight night where you beat Michael McBride, I believe it was, you did a really entertaining interview that MMA Junkie posted. I'm sure a lot of outlets posted, but I remember watching on MMA Junkie where you seemed almost giddy, like you were making jokes, like you were kind of cracking on the people in Media Row, how like they'd kind of turn their back if you didn't win your fight, but they were all like super interested in you. Is that a typical example of like that, of how you feel emotionally once you get to the media rounds? Is just so happy just to be in that process, or was that a rare night for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think every situation's different. Sometimes I'm happy to talk to the media, and then sometimes I'm not. Sometimes you feel jaded towards the media because sometimes they say unfavorable things about you. Sometimes they favor you, It just depends. So a lot of fighters, and I think just athletes in general, are jaded towards the media. So, sometimes I'm playful, and sometimes I'll go back at them. I'm like, hey, I remember that article you wrote. How do you feel about yourself now?
Yeah.
What do you think about calling me the underdog now?
Yeah.
You predicted him to win by TKO. How do you feel about yourself now?
Is anybody ever prepared to answer that, or do they
No.
always seem really taken
Oh
aback?
man, they're taken back, but they're like, oh well, sorry, it's just business, and I don't know, it's hard to pick, so they always backtrack, but it's fun to do it to them.
That was gonna be my next question. Does that feel like some justification that now you kind of get to have this moment like face to face with them and like explain yourself, sir or ma'am?
I think so, but you just have to be careful because once those guys have it out for you, they'll they can really burn you up in those and say some stuff that's not true, and it doesn't really matter because they're never held accountable for it. So be careful with it.
Does the UFC encourage trash talking to a certain extent? Because I know, like, MLB and a lot of those, they're like, I played well, my team played, the stock answers. But it seems like UFC, it's a little bit more engaging, I think is the word.
Yeah. So they never come right out and say it, but in a roundabout way, yes, they do because they reward it.
Okay.
So if you go out and get on Twitter and talk trash to a bunch of guys, all of a sudden the fans are more interested in you, and you can get a fight that you otherwise may not have.
Okay.
Or if you say a whole bunch of stuff in your post-fight interview or pre-fight interviews or interviews leading up to the fight, the UFC will think it's entertaining, and they're liable to give you more interviews. So there's still a sort of an old wrestling feel to it too, where some of that showmanship is rewarded. I mean, you see it a lot with Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
But as a fighter, you got to make a decision whether you want to kind of sell your soul out and take that route, to get more fans and possibly make more money, or if you just want to stay true and kind of be yourself and and not take that route. So
Okay.
I've struggled with it off and on. I'm, at this point now, I'm kind of leaning. I'm always leaning towards being myself. I've done it off and on, but I'm not willing to sell myself out hardcore like that.
Yeah.
I feel like to a certain extent we're still role models, and there are people out there that I would be embarrassed if they saw me acting like that. So I try to kind of live by that still. So, I may not have as many followers because of it, but I know looking back, and if my son looks up some interviews or something like that, there's nothing too bad out there. So I'm trying to keep it straight and just, let the fighting do the talking.
Okay.
I've watched a movie like Cinderella Man, where the hero finds this incredible amount of inspiration from their kids and their wife. And did you find this other level of inspiration when you got married and when you had a kid? Like, did that change anything about how you prepared for a fight and competed in the midst of a fight?
Yeah, I think so. With the baby, I always, it's easy when you're a parent to, and I would see other people parenting when I started thinking about it when my wife was pregnant and things like that. And you always see parents, like I would see parents correct their child and say, no, you don't do that. But then they would do it themselves. So I said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to parent that way. If I want to set an example, I'm going to do it myself. I'm not just going to say, don't do this or do that. I'm going to show him how to do it. So another thing was, I was thinking, hey, I still feel pretty good. I still have some time left in the sport. Like, I want to, let him know Dad was a winner too. And not only winning, but Dad also properly prepared and worked hard and, saw something out there he wanted and went after it. So I think definitely added motivation with the baby.
Go ahead.
Oh, This is going to be a weird, broader subject question, but it kind of goes back to the growing up playing sports and stuff. I hear a lot of parents now talking about like not letting their kids get into like football is the biggest one. I think worrying about concussions and stuff. Is that something you all have actively talked about? Like maybe leaning more, or are you more like whatever you would like to play, we're going to encourage that?
Yeah, I don't want him to fight. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
I just don't know a sport. That's a tough call because now every single sport you play has some negative effect on you. We're leaning towards golf. I'd like for him to golf. That's where I have a golfer friend, Scott Stalling. So
Yeah.
we want him to golf for sure. But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want him to fight or do anything like. I'd like for him to know how to defend himself, and you know, there are a lot of lessons learned through sport. A lot of lessons that carry over into life that I've learned on my own. So I want him to be involved in sport, but obviously I'd like for him to have a little bit easier path than I had.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think about that a lot. Like, can't remember who I was talking to the other day. I said, I think there's two things every kid should do, and that's play sports and have to work in the service industry when they're in high school to how to interact with people. Like when they're, I hate to say at their worst, but at their worst. Like those are two. And I've always said sports because you got to learn how to lose graciously. You got to learn how to lose and then do better the next time. Like I think those are two big fundamentals on training. But the working in the service industry is a big one.
Yeah.
It's like when you drive through McDonald's and you're crappy to that person. It's like,
well,
no.
And that's funny you bring that up because I think just yesterday I was talking to a friend and I'm like, man, because I was somewhere and maybe like a grocery store or something, and that, you know, you see it everywhere. So McDonald's, for example, you know, they've got high school kids working and things like that. I mean, service industry, you start talking and somebody messes up an order and, you know, they're doing the best they can. They're high school, they're learning, they're getting paid $7 an hour, maybe, like, and then you see people just screaming at them.
Yeah.
Hey, like, you're all right. These are, you know, you're at McDonald's. These are high school kids. Like, they're getting paid nothing.
Yeah.
Just relax. Like, they'll give you a new Coke or a different burger. Right. Like, you'll be okay. Just, you know, you see people out in public just making fools of themselves. And it's like, hey, you're in McDonald's. What do you, like, it's not a 5-star restaurant.
No.
And just relax. Like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree with that. And it's weird because I tell a lot of people that fighting changed my life.
Okay.
And people, I get the weirdest looks when they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, fighting people changed my life. But it's weird that, you know, because fighting and when you practice, and it's kind of like wrestling or even boxing, like you struggle every day with practice. Some days you get beat up, some days you win.
Yeah.
But then you realize to take the good days with the bad days and a positive mindset, and hey, man, just keep showing up, keep coming back. And that positive mindset, which was something I struggled with coming up with sport and everything, was a positive mindset and, you know, obviously self-belief and things like that. So fighting and training to fight and dealing with stress and everything like that really changed my mindset and helped me learn and grow as a person. And I get the funniest looks when I tell people that, but that mindset that I've kind of forged through the everyday struggle of training and fighting has carried over into life and really helped. You know, now I'm like, hey, I fight people in the octagon. Like, I can make it through this business deal or this bad day, or hey, they messed up my order. Okay, like
That's right.
it's all right. They've gotten it right the 10 times before, so.
I think Rogan's talked about that
like,
a lot too, about how a lot of the fighters are some of the nicest guys because it's almost like a de-stress thing. Like it's like there's zen. Like
Yeah, some of the nicest people. I'll tell you, the nicest fighter I've met so far is Chael Sonnen. Yeah, randomly. Yeah.
Jody knows my deep appreciation for Chael Sonnen.
And a lot of people, you know, because he's the guy that puts on the act. You know, like really sells it up and. But he's still to this day the nicest guy. He randomly I was with another friend and we were at the UFC and real quick. He was behind us in line after he just fought Anderson Silva the second time and lost.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
And this was at the UFC Fight Summit. I wasn't in the UFC yet. My friend was. And so we said, hey, man, great job. You did an awesome job selling the fight, in the fight, blah, blah, blah. He said, oh, I appreciate that. And we got up to order, and we ordered, and then he paid for it.
Oh, wow.
He paid for our order just randomly.
Nice guy.
And, man, nice. Still one of the nicest things.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Like I assumed, well, he seems like a nice man.
Yep.
Like it's good to hear actual validation that he is a nice man.
He's nice, and I've dealt with him a couple times. He's always been nice, and anybody will tell you that. But circling back on the fighter things, the fighters, some of the best people I've met are through fighting now. Like some of my best friends now and the most loyal people give you the shirt off their back, blah, blah, blah. But I think one of the reasons why fighters are so nice is because we've all kind of been humbled in the gym too. Yeah. We all realize, hey, man, there's always somebody out there that could beat you up if you're acting like a dick or, and we don't have anything to prove either, right? Like, we know we can take care of ourselves. We know, if you're acting like a dick, we'll check you on it. Like, I'm not going to let anybody disrespect me or my immediate friends or family, but, we've all been humbled and we don't have anything to prove. Like, hey, man, I fight men in the octagon. Like, I'm just not worried about anybody outside the octagon.
Do you find that people, just random people going through normal life, once they find out what you do for a profession, that they want to test you or they want to try to talk down to you?
No, not in a serious. No.
Good. Okay.
Maybe back in the old days before.
I have a funny story.
Yeah.
He knows this. I'm a big dude, and I've always been a big dude. And I always laugh that it's 45% of dudes are scared of me, 45% of dudes want to fight me to prove they're a man.
Yeah.
And 10% don't give a crap, and those are my friends. Because it's just like they need to poke or prove that they're a man.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my God.
Well,
sorry.
No, that's okay. And that makes sense because that's like the old, you always go after the biggest guy, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Damn it. Yeah.
That's the jailhouse analogy.
I
You
know.
go after like
But
the
we're
biggest,
not in jail,
baddest
man.
person.
I'm just trying to get some ice
See,
cream.
you can box a little bit though. So
I know.
You can handle yourself.
Anyway, sorry. I interrupted the question. So you don't think people?
I think nowadays, I think in the early on in the UFC, like, because you still see those videos pop up, like the karate videos where they got the death touch and they touch somebody in the forehead and the guy dies.
Yeah.
But so now the UFC is readily available. You can see it every day if you need. So now people are like, oh, wait, this is real. All that other stuff's not real.
Yes.
This stuff is real. So. And me too. I'm kind of wiry looking. I'm ugly and beat up looking. So I think people
you're being a
kinda,
little hard on yourself. I think
people kind of look at me and be like, I don't know if that guy's somebody I want to talk shit to. But so I don't really get it much. No.
Good.
Yeah.
That also makes me happy to hear that they're not just random ridiculous people out there trying to pick fights with professional fighters.
I'm also guessing it's because you don't go to the Cotton Eye Joe. If you went to the Cotton Eye Joe, you might have some dude go, hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
No, I try to limit those. I try to limit those. The bar hopping and stuff these days.
God.
It's all usually trouble.
Yeah, I won't get into that, but I had an incident not long ago where a husband and wife were screaming at each other outside of Barley's, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye and kind of watched him, and then he pushed her in the chest. I was like, nope, and I just started walking over to her, and she started punching him in the face. And I just went over and picked up the dude and turned him around. It's like, we're not going to do this. And he was like, I'm sorry. Now his wife came up and got in my face and started pointing at me. He's like, honey, please stop. Honey, please. And I just started squeezing him a little tighter. Yeah. He was like, honey, please stop. Honey, please stop. Honey, please stop. But, the bars are where it gets a little hairy.
Well, see, people ask me, and, friends will ask me and things like that. Like, hey, what would you do? What would you do if this situation happened or that? And I always tell them, hey, if I'm out in public with my friends or family, I never actively go out and seek fights.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, you can always get put in jail. My hands aren't, as opposed to some of those myths, my hands aren't registered weapons or any weird stuff like that. But, I could maybe be punished a little more severely if I were to really hurt somebody. But, the other thing is, too, I can't make money if I break my hands in a street fight. Like I tell people, I don't fight for free anymore, man. There's too much money to be made.
That's right.
If I break my hand on some fool at Barley's,
Yeah.
I can't make money 8 weeks from now.
That will not make it to
Yeah.
pay-per-view. Like,
Exactly. But I always tell people, hey, if I'm with my friends and family in public and somebody disrespects my friends or family or puts hands on them, like, they're not trained, I'm trained. I'm definitely going to step in and defend them.
Sure.
Always.
Yeah.
So I don't actively seek any altercations, but you better believe I'll be in there on somebody quick if they mess with anybody I care about.
You don't
Yeah.
need to start it. You just know how to stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you.
And I'm not shy about it either. Like,
Yeah.
if you're out of line, I'll check you quick. I'll say something first. And if you come in my little bubble range, then to me, it's a fist fight.
Yeah.
Good for you. I mean, that's how it should be. Like,
Yeah.
no one should have to put up with that. And
No.
it's wonderful that you have the
Yep.
ability to, like, I physically do not have to put up with this.
Well, there's too many
ever.
bullies out there, right?
Yeah.
And even guys that are big that kind of take advantage of it, or guys that are have a loud mouth. Like, there are a lot of bullies out there. So
Yeah.
I don't tolerate that either.
Have you run into bullies in the professional world too? Like, I totally believe there are a lot of, like, really nice people out there competing. Have you again, not asking for specifics, but again, have you run into some personalities of people like, I would just rather not have to deal with you ever?
Yeah, I think so. There are still some fighters that are a little more arrogant than others, but you can still, you still get guys who get into it, verbal and even physical sometimes. I haven't run into too much of it, but there are times when I'm ready to say something, or, hey, if this guy says one more thing to me, we're going to be a fight right here in public. So that's just, at the end of the day, we're still fighters, right? Like, it's still a fight business. Sometimes the octagon or the fight takes place in a different spot.
When it came, I'm gonna go back to. So you played for the Ice Bears. I have a few questions.
Okay. Briefly.
Yeah. Because ice hockey's not a huge thing. How did you get into ice hockey?
No, I kind of, when I was a kid, the Cherokees were around.
Yep.
So I had neighbors who played street hockey, so I started playing street hockey with them.
Okay.
And they were Cherokees fans too, and so I would go to some of the games, and they randomly they sent a letter for a Cherokees hockey camp. It was addressed to the neighbors, but they put it in our mailbox. So I stole the letter and went to the camp, and you could rent equipment. I'd never been on ice before.
Yeah.
You could rent equipment, so they gave me a garbage bag full of equipment, and I think I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, and got out there on the ice, couldn't stand up.
For the first time.
Like, first time ever on the ice. I was the laughing stock of this camp, because it was a bunch of kids who had been playing for a while.
Yeah.
And then ever since, man, I just loved it. And I played always. And so always played, traveling growing up, things like that. And then played college baseball, and then transitioned into, went to UT to finish up my college and played club hockey just for fun.
Yeah.
Did well at that. And then finished up college, and I had a friend, Kevin Swider, who played for the Ice Bears, and he kind of talked me into coming out for training camp to try out. Yeah. And it wasn't something that I thought I could pursue professionally, but I was like, what the hell? If I can avoid the real world for a little longer, not having to get a job, I'll do it. So I kind of came out to training camp. I didn't really train or anything, and these guys are Canadians and been playing since 4 years old and things like that. So I made it all the way through training camp and played 2 games, and then they cut me and sent me to a different league. Got up to the other league, and I was like, this is not for me. The league was crappy. Like, we were living in this Motel 6, and
Oh my God.
Yikes.
so real long story short.
Have you ever seen Slapshot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those guys were in town not too long ago.
Oh, yeah,
they
the
came and did a
brothers, yeah.
signing. Yeah.
Have you ever seen Slapshot? Oh
Never.
my God, you need to see Slapshot.
No,
Yeah,
never
it's a
seen
classic.
Paul Newman, man. It's
One of the best.
minor league hockey in like the 70s or early 80s, and it is rough and tumble and hilarious and wrong and awesome. I think my dad made me watch that movie when I was like 10. I was like,
Yeah.
I should not have been watching this movie.
He
when I was
made
10.
you watch it, like
Yeah.
forcibly.
Oh yeah. No, he just sat me down. He's like, son, this is a. He made me
Yeah.
watch Deliverance at 11. Man, at 11, I shouldn't have watched Deliverance. Like,
That's aggressive.
Yeah, Dad.
It's aggressive
they
movie
also
watching.
took me to bars when I was 4 years old. Man, I'm
Well, you were 5'10" and had a mustache. When you
Well,
were
that
4,
explains why you're a grizzly 27 years old now.
That's it. But he only looks like he lived on the. But he looks like you lived on the street for like a week and a half, like not a extended.
oh my
hard time.
God.
Bars since you were 4.
Yeah.
Smoking since you were 10.
That's it.
No, I'm just kidding. I totally made that up.
no, but yeah, I can't. Well, although, what did your folks do for a living?
It was just me and my mom coming up, really.
Okay.
So my mom was a court reporter. It's the
Oh.
little lady that sits off in the side of the court
Yeah.
and
Typing
and
like
records
mad.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was her, man. She pretty much always did that.
That's awesome.
So we grew up I grew up with her over in Inskip.
Yeah.
So Inskip, Fountain City, me and my mom came up, and my little brother came along. Well, half brother came along when I was about 7. So I have a half brother that's my only sibling.
Okay.
But my mom, she's famous around Fountain City. She's part of the Fountain City Fight Club. Her and her 3 sisters. Yeah, 2 of the sisters have been thrown out of every bar in Knoxville. So my mom's nickname is Hellcat. Also,
Can I interview
So-
her?
she's the real star of the show. I promise you.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
if there-
Hellcat's her nickname. So if that tells you anything,
Oh my
she's
God.
she's
What
a
a-
spark plug.
what a wonderful nickname.
Yeah.
Like, there's a-
Hellcat.
hey, if there was Fountain City Fight Club merchandise,
Yep.
I will be the first in line for that. If
Uh,
anybody
telling
wants
you.
to make that happen,
I'm
I
telling
will-
you.
He's
Take-
looking to,
take
so
my
I'm
money.
an artist, so he's looking directly at me
Yeah,
like,
take my money.
I'm telling you, they're famous over in Inskip,
Oh my
Fountain
God.
City.
Oh my God.
Notorious. Maybe not famous, but notorious.
That's really
So,
cool.
Yeah, so I have some deep-rooted bloodlines in
Oh my
fighting.
God.
Okay, so you came about it naturally. I like that.
Yeah, that and then the UT college bar circuit where I got a lot of my early experience.
I'm trying to remember. Was Moose's still around when you were?
No,
Moose's
not
had just
Moose's.
gone.
No,
Was it, you know where the
Liquid?
Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yeah,
is? That's where
I
Moose.
remember Moose's faintly. That
Yeah.
was when I was there. It was called Liquid Bar, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because
So,
I'm born in '83.
Yeah,
Were you-
83
okay,
also.
I was assuming we were about the same age.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was
I'm
Liquid.
trying to do the
then.
math on what a grizzled 27-year-old, what year he would have been born.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely Liquid. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember
So-
that. Free beer Sundays at Liquid.
Oh, jeez.
oh yeah.
Hey, please respect Free Beer Sunday, Jody.
Yeah.
Was
Good
O'Charlie's? O'Charlie's was still around, though, right?
Yeah, that was there.
I think
that
so.
was classy.
Charlie
Yeah.
Peppers was on the corner too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Charlie Peppers, Liquid, McLeod's down in Market Square. We used to go.
Clouds.
The Beer Cellar. Where's some
Oh, I
other
forgot about the
spots?
beer cellar.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I can never remember. It's that road that's parallel to Cumberland. Is it Lake that's behind it?
Yep,
Where
Lake.
Cool Beans and all that is.
Cool
Yeah.
Beans.
There used to be a bar up closer to the corner of 17th. There was this giant bar that had like almost like an outdoor area with mosquito net. That I remember. That's the only reason I remember. That's
Yeah.
first place I ever
God,
had a
what was
Guinness. And
I don't remember that.
Was that RT's?
May have
Maybe.
been
RT's was a place right beside the bank,
okay.
right beside Liquid.
So did you go to Sawyer's a lot?
Yes,
you
the
remember-
chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that was one of our favorite spots.
Have you? God, I can't look at Adam when I say this. Have you ever been to Jackie's Dream?
No, but I want to go.
So Miss Jackie was the manager at Sawyer's
What?
forever.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Did you
Okay.
not know?
No, huh?
She was
I had no
manager
clue.
there, and then her and George were sous chefs at Crown and Goose forever.
Oh,
I'm on the menu at Jackie's Dream. You
Are
can
you?
order the Jody.
I have to. I follow him on Instagram, and I've been meaning to go there forever. It looks
It's-
incredible.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So good.
It's a good place, and it's husband and wife
Yeah.
and fam.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
We're gonna
sorry,
cut
we'll
that
edit
part
that
out.
out.
No.
Edit.
Partners in
Yes.
some regard,
Yeah.
but it's just like like they're always cutting up
Yeah.
and they're super friendly, not too dissimilar from Kim and her team
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like they're it's like the kind of business you walk into and like, I have to support you like
Yep.
in any way I can. Like,
Well, and on the flip side, because I know you're Inskip Grill, same
Yep.
thing. Justin and them,
Yeah.
like it's
Oh,
when you're
man.
in there, you're part of a community.
yeah,
Yep.
it's a good man.
Incredible. You know, Inskip Grill, after the last fight, I came back and he let me rent out the place on a Thursday night. I brought the whole Fountain City Fight Club and the gang in there.
That's awesome.
We had about 30 people in there, and they cooked for us. And man, it was
He's
great.
the nicest guy. He's
Yeah.
super sweet.
And he can cook a hamburger.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he's a
He's
talented
all-
man.
I did see
Great.
he had the mega cane. Have you seen the mega cane?
No.
It's two of them on
with
top
the chicken fingers
it's
on it
t-
or something.
Well,
Ghost
there's the
pepper?
regular cane that's like a burger, bacon, cheese, 3 hot chicken fingers, cheddar filled stuffed jalapenos. But then
Ooh.
he hasn't called it the mega cane, but it's two of those
Huh.
on top of one another.
That's incredible.
Man.
Yeah, you got to go in there. For me, I have to go in there on cheat meal days. I can't go too often or after the fight. Makes it tough. But
You should post eating a donut. Have you seen the donut sphere thing?
yeah,
The thing say like, yeah, this is my cheat meal.
yeah.
This damn donut sphere.
He made me a dessert, but he was like, "You want the donut sphere?" I'm like, "No, man, I can't handle that. Just make me one donut with some ice cream on it and stuff."
There you go.
So he made me a special little dessert, but he, man, he's doing good. And you know what's funny about that place? And why I've always, since he opened it, I was like, man, I have to support this place because that place has been there.
Yeah.
So when I was in kindergarten, my bus used to drive by that place, and it was the M&M Grill.
Really?
It's been there, and
Yeah.
I looked at it every day on the bus when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
been there forever.
Yeah.
So, and I used to go in there with my aunts too and eat, and it was an old, you know, you got a couple eggs and a piece
Yeah.
of toast in there.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so when he rebranded it and things like, I was like, I got to support this, and he's doing good, man. I'm happy for him.
Oh,
yeah, my uncle lives over off Merchants behind the
Mm.
big mega church, Wallace.
Yep,
Memorial.
Wallace Memorial. Yep.
Yeah, like I remember when I was growing up, there used to be a street behind Wallace Memorial,
Okay.
but because it's so big,
Yeah.
and then they put in a school and everything, they bought every house on that street
Whoa.
and turned it into a parking lot.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Whoa.
like it's insane. Yeah, going over there, but we would go. Usually after swimming or something, we would go to different spots around there when Sugar Bakers was there and all that. Yeah.
Another place too that I love to eat, and I like this because I have to manage my weight so much, and then I always make this giant list of when I get back to Knoxville, all the things I'm going to eat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and we were talking about Jackie's Dream because it's over off Magnolia, right?
They
moved?
moved.
They did move.
They're near Fulton. They're closer to my
Oh,
house, which
okay.
is not good. It's just not good at all.
But what about Chandler's Deli? How do you guys feel about that?
It used to be a lot better than
Yeah.
it is now.
Yeah, and I hadn't been in a while.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to them. That family is super awesome. But the last few times I've went in, I've been a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
But I'm also a kid who grew up on Louis.
Yep.
Which I get into arguments with people about Louis all the time. They're like, "Oh, it's too greasy." I was like,
Yeah.
"You shut your mouth."
Yep.
That's my spaghetti, man. That's
Oh, the best spaghetti in the world, Louis. So I get in huge arguments too because and I have a group chat still with old friends I grew
Yeah.
up with, and they're like, "Oh, Pizza Palace." I'm like,
no.
hell no, man. Louis.
The one thing I
never
will
say that.
Pizza Palace does have better onion rings. I don't know
Yeah.
how.
Huh.
Their onion rings are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Louis' onion rings are their own thing, but
Yeah.
I love how Pizza Palace looks.
Yeah,
Like I
it's
like
cool
just,
old
like,
school.
Yeah, like I want to go there just because like this is good for Instagram.
well,
Yeah.
and my biggest hot take is I remember what Linton's used to be like when I was a kid, and I don't like it as much anymore.
Really?
Yeah, when the creamery was there by the Fountain City, I love the creamery.
Yeah.
I ate there all the time.
Yep.
Now it's just Fountain City.
It's Fountain
talk.
City staple right there.
Yeah.
'Cause I went to Gresham also.
Yeah.
Okay,
used
so
to
you're
walk
right
down
there.
there,
Yeah.
I went to a summer daycare thing when I was like in 6th grade, where we were at Central Baptist Church on the hill.
Yep.
And it was a sports daycare, to where you spent 2 weeks learning a sport, and then 2 weeks so we learned like how to canoe, and then we went whitewater rafting at the end. We learned how to play tennis. learn how to play basketball, but we would always go to Gresham for usually, I think it was tennis and basketball. And I played basketball at Gresham one year where I had to bring here's a fun fact, I had to bring my birth certificate to every game. Me and this guy Mac, because Mac had a little mustache.
Yeah.
And we were in like the 8th or 9th
believe
grade.
that.
And they're like, you all are not kids. And they're like, we are kids.
Well, they saw you in the bar the night before,
Yeah.
chain smoking.
The
And
dance,
they're like,
yeah.
yeah, man, that guy can't
They're
play
like,
here.
Man, you're a grizzly.
Yeah, you're like,
13
that's
years
right.
old.
That's right.
Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm 13. It's like he's smoking a dart before he goes in and plays the
Yeah.
basketball game.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Man.
So the merchandise comment reminded me, branded bills.
Yeah.
How did that come into your life?
Man, I got lucky with that. So in Arizona, so their company's based out in Tempe, which
Okay.
The gym that I train at, I do some mobility training out there. It's called Premier Fitness Systems.
Okay.
And the guy that I train with there randomly went to high school with him. And so he's like, hey, I got to introduce you to these guys that make these hats. They made our Premier Fitness Systems hats, and I still have it, but it's been my favorite hat forever. So I met him way back. And funny story, 4 guys did it, and they each put in like $1,000.
Okay.
And now the company's like gigantic. But
Wow.
they're
Yeah.
still in Tempe. It's about 15 minutes from. So whenever I'm in Phoenix, I'll drive over to the office and see the guys. I was actually just talking to the guy because I posted something about him earlier. They made a nice Father's Day video.
It was
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
And-
a really great idea.
Yeah,
they had.
I was
Yeah.
asking if I could go ahead and post it, but man, I love their hats, man. Just it looks so clean, and they do a good job. So
Yeah.
I never wear any different hats now. It's weird. I don't, and I wear a hat every day too.
Right on. No,
Yeah.
I have. I drove to Shield Systems
Okay.
one day and bought one of them, and I really like caps,
Yeah.
but I'll buy a lot that I won't even wear.
Yeah.
But yeah, like made really well, thick. The bill of the hat didn't like crumble when I tried to shape it.
Yeah.
Like so, whatever it's worth coming from me, like
Yeah.
super cool hat.
Well, I appreciate
And the colors
that.
are like the gray
Yeah.
and the orange. Like that was really cool
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the support, man.
Yeah,
And
man.
And those the one thing I like about the hats, you can kind of put them right on and they fit. You don't have to break them in or anything like that. They
Yep.
always wear pretty well. So, people always ask for new merchandise from me, T-shirts and things, and I just don't do it that much anymore. But when I do stuff, I want it to be quality.
Sure.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
want it to be something that somebody wants to wear, not a T-shirt that once you wash it once, one sleeve's longer than the other. and
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
wrong color.
The
So-
artwork's peeling off of it.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I've seen all that
so
stuff.
I try to just I don't put out a ton of stuff, but the stuff I do put out, I try to have good quality.
Yeah.
I'm going to give another plug. Have you ever heard of Borderland Tees over in South Knoxville?
I have not.
So it's a Reverend Jenny Arthur and Bob. I just know Bob. That he owned a T-shirt shop in Fountain City forever,
Oh,
and his son
really?
runs it
Okay.
now. But they employ homeless people to give them a living wage to be able to try and get out of homelessness.
Really? Wow.
Well,
that's
and
And they're
incredible.
over on Sevier Avenue, and they're the sweetest people in the world.
In addition to homeless people that are struggling with addictions, because there's a significant number of halfway houses in that
Yeah.
neighborhood. And so it's people that potentially would have an incredibly challenging time getting a job, and they're just like, come on in, like you got a job here.
There's a guy that has Tourette's, and they're like a big supporter of him and showing that
Miles, I think is his
Miles.
name.
Yeah, so they're just great people. They're great people though to
Yeah.
know here in town.
Well, I always admire that, man, because it's so easy to just kind of hire some normal people and
Yeah,
clock them in every day and clock them out. So you really have to go out of your way to do something like that, do some nice things. It's really easy to just kind of go about your business and do
Yeah.
things the right way, but to kind of bend over backwards and take a chance and sometimes you're taking risks to do that
Yeah.
and put in the extra time and effort is nice. I think more people need to know about stuff like that, especially in the community.
well, it's like the old Big Ed's model where Big Ed's out in Oak Ridge. Did you know about that? Like how he would hire like troubled kids.
You told me.
Okay.
I never knew that when I would eat
he
there.
would bring them in and he would make them part of his family. And that was something that I don't think a lot of people talked about until he got older, and when he passed away. They're like, oh, no, I was able to eat because I worked here, or I was able to have a safe place where I wasn't worried about getting hit, at anything. Yeah.
That's great, man. I think that's more people need to know about stuff like that. Yeah.
There's no good segue into what made you choose sociology as a major.
It's as good a segue as there. That's as
I'm
good,
just
it's as good as it could have been.
No.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Well, I think early on I had these ideas that maybe I would become an FBI agent or some sort of law enforcement.
Okay.
And in college, half the time you don't know what you want to do. You're too young, man.
Yeah.
You're like,
That's for sure.
you don't say I want to do sales or I want to be a UFC fighter. I don't know what college degree you would get for that anyway, but
sociology is a good one.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Psychology. Sociology had, you could do the criminal justice concentration.
Okay.
Well, I did a business minor in junior college, and then I did sociology with a concentration in criminal justice, and then business minor at UT.
Okay.
Too. So, but then I got towards the end of my career at UT and ready to graduate. I'm like, man, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I don't think I'm the guy to, be a police officer or, FBI or like the FBI is really cool, but to get to the really cool jobs, you have to be, a police officer for a while or military experience, or they want accountants or something like that. So I kind of got out and realized I didn't want to do it. So, I think that some of the business minor is because now I essentially run my own business, right? Like my branding and
you sure do,
marketing. So a lot of the business has really helped. But and some of the sociology and psychology classes have helped too. But, putting the degree to good use.
But you worked in an office for a while, right?
Yeah. So for 3 years I did recruiting. I was sitting in a cubicle staring at a computer and talking on the phone to these electrical engineers trying to get them to change jobs pretty much.
Yeah.
And some of these guys barely spoke English and they were out in Silicon Valley and things like that. So, it was a big change from what I was used to. So I struggled with it.
Did you ever miss anything about office life?
No, but
free coffee.
Not at all.
No,
man.
it's crappy coffee.
No,
Never mind.
I didn't so now that I think about it, that's one positive thing that came from the office life is I started drinking coffee, and now I'm a huge coffee
Hooray!
Advocate. But it was like was willing to do anything to stay awake at my desk half the time. So I started drinking coffee, which I never had. But a lot of the lessons I learned through the business and things like that kind of helped me, dealing with people business-wise, et cetera, et cetera. But, man, they're towards the end of my tenure in the business world. I could barely get out of bed to go to work, man. And I think sometimes when people say that, it's hard to get up and go to work, some people don't believe it, but it was true, man. I had to drag myself out of bed. And I think my mentality that I learned through sport too, and that I still kind of carry was like, hey, man, you don't quit. Like, hey, it'll get better. Let's keep pushing, push through it. But then that led towards the end of the days I couldn't get myself out of bed to go.
Well, and then I think maybe as young North American people, we're like pushed to do that normal thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm for sure not saying there's anything wrong with office job or sitting in a cubicle. Like, there's a lot of good work that gets done that way. But I think there's like pressure that like, no, this is what you do. Yep. You wake up, you do this 9 to 5 thing Monday through Friday, and you sit in this little box. Yep. And you should be grateful. Mm-hmm. And there aren't all bad things about it, but I can empathize because I didn't make a drastic career change as you, but I went from cubicle world to not cubicle world, and well, you're talking about sometimes after a fight, you're so overcome with emotion. You've cried before. I cried leaving work before because like my brain just couldn't deal with like, man, I'm just like sitting here in this little box. Like I just feel like I'm not meant to do this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I spent a lot of time in offices and stuff, and it took when I worked at one company, one of the guys, hell, I should just say it's Pet Safe. Do you know Pet Safe, the dog collars? So I was a designer or marketing person there, and I was getting upset about something. I was pissed off to the point of, and he looked at me and he was like, 2 things. It's just dog collars, and you ain't got cancer. And I was like, holy shit, you're completely right.
Yeah.
It's just dog collars, and I don't have cancer.
Yep.
Everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. And then, but then on the flip side of the getting up to get motivated, then the next job I had, the minute I got laid off, and we had 4 months to where I was like, oh, well, I'm not motivated to even come into work. What's the point? Like a lot of people start pulling back work, and I was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to just go do my own thing, and you all do your thing in here, because it was in the newspaper industry. I was like, it's just newspapers, and I'm not editorial. I'm just telling people to buy a subscription, designing ads to make them buy.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't care. You're laying me off. I don't care if they buy subscriptions.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But
well, I see that a ton, man, and that's, and that's the generation before us with our parents. You're 18, you get a job, you work with that company for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yes.
And you have a little picket fence house, and you have kids, and that's it. You're done. You get out of high school, you go to work, you find your wife, you have kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's just not like that anymore, and I still see it with me. I have people, even this year, hey, man, do you get paid to fight? It's like, man, what do you think I'm doing out here? Like, you think I'm just, living off welfare and fighting people on ESPN?
Yeah.
On pay-per-view? What are you talking about? So, especially when I first started fighting, people were like, hey, man, you can't do that. You got to, you can't just fight as a job. You got to go work. It's like, what do you mean? So what I'm doing every day is not work? Why can't it be work?
Yeah.
If I find a way to make money at it, why can't it be work? Just because I enjoy it, you think, but it's still, people still don't believe I get paid to do it. It's crazy.
On the flip side, do people think you might have it? I don't want to say have it easy, but it's like, well, all you have to do is, go in and work out a little bit and then go fight, and you're going to make millions of dollars.
100%.
Yeah, all 100%.
The time. People say, oh, so that's all. And so people say, okay, so you're fighting. Man, so do you, have a job? Do you have another job? I'm like, no, I just fight people.
Yeah.
So that's so your job's just, work out? And I'm like, how about you come and try and walk in my shoes for
no, thank you.
a week, maybe even a day, and see if you can make it.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk again.
Yeah.
But, people all the time, so you just work, that's a sweet job. You just work out all day. I'm
Wish I had that. Yeah.
You couldn't walk in my shoes for a day.
Probably because when people perceive it, they think of how they work out.
Yep.
And have no
exactly.
concept
Or how they think they would work out.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because, pardon my ignorance, but I imagine, especially when you're in camp, this is multiple workouts a day. And then in between, I'm guessing meals are even a big thought-provoking endeavor. Like, you can't just eat and drink whatever you want to. Is that fair?
No, yeah. I'm working out 2-3 times a day, and when I'm not working out, I'm having to focus on recovery. So I've got to try to rest properly, proper nutrition, ice, heat, just massage. There's so much that goes into it. Sometimes I'm working, 12, 15-hour days technically working on trying to be the best I can be.
And studying film and stuff, too.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm till 10 o'clock at night, I don't wind down. I end the night with hot tub, cold tub, film study. Yeah. And then it's like, all right, man, I have to cut it off now and go to bed.
Yeah.
So I'll enable to sleep enough to properly recover to be able to do it all over again the next day.
Yeah.
Do you end up sleeping more when you're in training than in your regular life?
It depends, but you try to. I try to always sleep about 8 hours, 7 to 9 hours. If I don't, my immune system starts breaking down. It's hard to. You really have to. I need more sleep than an average person for my body to recover properly.
Right.
It's because if you don't, your body doesn't recover, your immune system breaks down, and you can't continue to train like you need to.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you ever get terrible, unsolicited advice from people? Like people who watch you fight and like, hey, man, watch your fight. And if I was out there, I would have done. Do you have to put up with that at all?
Yes, every fight.
I'm sorry.
And unfortunately,
Like-
we're so accessible now. Everybody is on social media and things. Like, I'll have people say, hey, man, you lost me my bet. Hey, why did you do this? Why
Oh
did
my
you do
gosh.
that?
I'm
You
sorry.
know, if
And
I had
then
been
you-
there, I would have.
Yeah, exactly. People, I would have done this and that. And then you look at their picture and it's like, man, you've never exercised before.
Yeah.
What are you
That's
talking?
right.
Have you ever even actually been in a real fight?
Yeah.
And
Probably not.
but the funniest part is, people tell me I won or lost them their bet. And every time somebody says, hey, man, you won me a whole bunch of money, I'll say, all right, well, can I get a cut of it?
Yeah.
No, it's radio silence after that.
Yeah.
But
What a weird. I could just never imagine thinking that was okay to offer anyone in any profession advice. Let
you
alone
wouldn't
a
believe the
professional
stuff
fighter.
that people say to me. It's crazy. It's some of the funniest stuff.
I apologize on behalf of their ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Like Twitter seems like. I heard a quote of someone they treat Twitter like a haunted house.
Yeah.
They just kind of like peek in there for a minute and like,
Yeah.
what's going on there? Ooh, scary. Like,
Yeah.
like that seems like that would be the primary place where people
Yeah.
would just think like, I can just say whatever I want to Scott Holtzman.
Yeah, and it's funny is people say the worst shit to you, man, and it's unfortunate because there are a lot of good fans out there and positive fans, and that's why I always try to appreciate them. But some of those bad fans kind of ruin it. You know, they ruin your experience with the fans. They kind of make you jaded, and so then you're like, I'm not going to check Twitter. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
That
for every
makes-
one comment, there are 10 positive comments for every one negative comment. But people say the worst shit to you, man, on there. Like,
Yeah.
basically tell you, you're end your own life, and they'll say some horrible stuff,
Jesus.
man. But for all those comments that I've gotten, and again, 10 positive ones for every one negative, but nobody's ever said one negative thing to me in person.
No.
So,
That sounds about right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Checks
that's
out.
Not
that
ever.
sounds about right.
Not one
Yeah.
time.
I'm going to try and take this in positive light then. Have you had people that you grew up with that are now like some of your biggest supporters that you may have not known them that well when you were young, but now they're like, oh, I know him. Yay, go Scott.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
I feel like Knoxville's such a community.
Yeah,
Like that's
Knoxville's really gotten behind me, man. It's been really cool to see, and the support's been amazing, and so that has been cool. And there are definitely a lot of people supporting me, and I get a lot of stories. Hey, man, I met your friend. I was like, what's his name? Well, it's Earl. It's Earl. He says he trains with you. I'm like, I don't know any. I don't have anybody I train with named Earl.
Oh my
So you get some stuff like that once in a
Okay.
while. Or, hey, man, this guy said he beat you up. I'm like, what? Who?
Yeah.
What's his name? Well, it's Earl. He said he beat you up one day. I'm like, I don't know any Earl.
Yeah.
And I hadn't fought anybody on the street in a long time.
Wait, you're like, oh, when I was 3?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
So
maybe.
you get a whole mixed bag of stuff, which is fun sometimes, but you never know what kind of legends growing out there, good or bad.
Do you want to ask the Hard Knocks? Like, I'll ask how did they approach you on, we're going to put you on our mural?
Oh, the pizza place.
Yeah, Hard
I was
Knocks
thinking like the
Pizza.
HBO series. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
That's a good series, though. I like
love
the
it.
Hard Knocks on
Yeah.
HBO. So I've known Paul. I met Paul Sponcia. Paul and Alexa are the owners of Hard
Okay.
Knocks.
Okay.
And I met them a while back before they had the Hardin Valley location. And they've been supporting me for a while. They do a lot of stuff for the community too.
Okay. Yeah,
Tons of stuff, man. It's hard to even list it all.
Yeah.
But I met them way back, and they've kind of sponsored me and supported me off and on throughout my career. And when they opened the Hard Knocks location, of course, I wanted to help support and do what I could. And they mentioned that they wanted Curtis Glover to paint this mural, and they said they wanted to put me on it. So, of course, I was like, all right, but I just have one condition on that. He has to give me a tan on there. That's the only thing I care about. I don't care what I look like. Just make me tan. All right?
That's awesome.
So he came through, man. If you look at it, I'm real tan on there.
Yeah.
So he did me a favor on that one. But
good bronze color
Yeah.
on that mural. Yeah.
so it's funny, though, because I'll get people say, hey, man, we were in Hard Knocks, and there's this boxer on the wall. I swear it looks just like you. I'm like, yeah, was he wearing UFC gloves? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, all right. I'll have to check it out.
Put two and two together here, people. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So that's been awesome, man. That's such a cool thing. And I don't know. I guess to me, and that comes back from like stepping back from it and
Okay.
and just trying to process it and saying, hey, that's pretty cool that somebody would want to take the time to do a mural and include me on it.
Yeah.
It's really, really special.
I think something we haven't. How did you get into fighting? Like, because you played sports.
The office
forever,
job.
but The office job
Yeah.
is what got you into fighting.
The office job is what led me to fighting. So it was driving me crazy, man, about 2 years in. And I had this friend named Jarrett DeJesu that I played hockey with. And he was into MMA. He was doing some of the early on jiu-jitsu. And I saw him at a cookout. And I was like, hey, man, I just, this job's driving me crazy. I need a different outlet. I want to come to your gym one day and just check it out. Because I was, working, doing the workout thing, the rat race, like same schedule every day. Eat, sleep, workout, eat, sleep, work. So I followed him to the gym one day, and it was Premier Martial Arts up off Walker Springs early on. And I followed him one day, and after one day, I almost died training. We did jiu-jitsu, and I was exhausted, like on another level. I was like, I love this. I have to do it. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to fight or anything, but I'll just do jiu-jitsu. And then after about a year, my competitive side took over. So I had my first fight and won in like 40 seconds. Didn't even get hit. Just completely came out like crazy and like football tackled the guy. I didn't even know how to throw a punch yet, really. Football tackled the guy and beat him up in 40 seconds. And after that, I was like, well, I didn't even get hit, so I got to try another one. So I did another one, and that one lasted 3 rounds and turned out to be a real good fight. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll just go till I lose. And so then kept going all the way undefeated until I got into the UFC. So all of a sudden I was in the UFC, like just riding that wave. And then I was like, oh, shit, these guys are good, man. What have I got myself into? Like, these guys are world champion kickboxers and Division I wrestlers. And I'm just like a dude from Knoxville, just an athlete.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here to fight.
It's pretty incredible.
My name's Scott. So now I'm still in the UFC and made a career out of it. It's been a wild ride, man. It's been so cool. And I've traveled the world, and I never thought I'd leave Tennessee or Skip or Fountain City. So I've been real fortunate and had some opportunities, and like I said earlier, met some of the best people through fighting. Fighting's changed my life, man. It's been such an awesome ride.
That's awesome. Do you have any?
I'm good. And Scott,
The last thing I will ask is, what's it like having a trading card?
Oh man, so a couple things. So the trading card with Topps, so that came out earlier this year, and they sent me like 2,000 of them to sign.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah,
Wow.
and then they paid me $4 per card, so that was cool.
Okay.
To sign all those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I would have signed them for free. You guys shouldn't have told me you were going to pay me. I would have done this for free. So to see that was, because when I was a kid, I wasn't a big superhero guy or anything like that. I liked Ninja Turtles, but I was sports always. Like, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, always sports as a kid. It was everything sports. So, of course, collected cards like every kid. And Topps is always the best brand.
Absolutely.
So for that to come full circle and me to actually have a Topps card and to sign some of those cards.
Yeah.
And when you tried to when you collect those packs and you got a card that was actually a real signature, like that was, you hit the jackpot, the gold mine.
That was
the best you could ever get.
Absolutely.
So to have some of those cards in rotation and to sign that deal with Topps was like dream come true for sure, like childhood dream. Because really early on, all I wanted to be was a professional athlete. I didn't even, maybe it was baseball, then it was hockey, and then it was like, I don't know. So that, and then being on ESPN, I think, because Sports Center and trading cards, those were all, that's what I did as a kid.
Yeah.
So fighting on ESPN was a dream come true, too. Now I just need a highlight to make Sports Center, and that'll be another dream. But, a couple childhood dreams, man. That's what I'm saying. And sometimes I have to step back from it and appreciate it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Anything about having kids? I'm lucky to have a wife.
Yep.
I learned when I was living at home with my parents, it's an unacceptable answer when someone asks you when you're going to be home to say, "I'll be there when I get there."
Yeah.
So yeah,
that doesn't work.
No, it does not.
It does not work.
My dad would have found me wherever I was at and just pulled me out of anything and been like, "No, you're coming home now, boy."
Yeah.
But for context, I used to really love this. I don't think it's still active. This blog called Cage Potato.
I remember
And-
it. Yeah.
and they covered XFC.
Oh yeah.
And like that was so trippy to me. Like, well, there's like this really notable mixed martial arts promotion that runs events where I live, and that was when I first learned about you. In the lead up to what I, as a fan, thought was going to be a fight between you and Nick Newell.
Yeah.
And so Nick Newell was the champion in this promotion, and the way. And tell me if I read about it with errors, but the way I read about it was this guy Nick Newell, Scott became the number one contender for this championship.
Okay.
And Nick was like, "Nah, like I'm not fighting Scott." And so I think that was the end of Nick in XFC, and you went on to win that championship.
Yep.
Is there bitterness in that scenario where you've earned this position in the promotion, you've earned this right to fight the top guy, and they're just like, "Nah, I'm not fighting him"?
I think there was a little bit at the time because, if he didn't want to fight me, he should have told me earlier on. He kind of waited till about 4 weeks before the fight, so we had to shuffle around and find an opponent.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he waited to tell everybody. But the opponent that they found, I think, was actually better than him. And the guy had fights against UFC veterans, and he was actually a pretty good name. So it kind of worked out better for me in the long run. But, if you're the champ, you have to kind of take on all comers. That's what you sign up for. But it worked out better for me. I think I got to fight that guy who was a little bit bigger name and looked better on my resume.
Win-win scenario.
But yeah, there was a little bit of bitterness, and he was kind of mad at me too. He was calling me a bully, and my thing was, I'm not a bully, man, but you got to tell us if you're not wanting to fight so we can make other arrangements. Like I was already in the training camp. I was in Arizona making arrangements to fight this guy, and then I didn't know if I would have a fight. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. And XFC, you were how to phrase this? What happened? Because I remember reading about the events. I remember reading about them trying to expand internationally. And then I was following you, and it was as if, like, there are just no more challengers to Scott.
Yeah.
Is my perception of that, like, how that went down?
They kind of went under. They sold the organization. They sold it off, and then the new owners wanted to kind of take it to Brazil, take it overseas.
Okay.
And there was kind of some mix-up, and they wanted to head in a different direction, and I think eventually it just folded, and they ended up letting me out of my contract. Because at first they wanted me to go to Brazil and fight, and they were like, "Hey, we want you to go to Brazil and fight in 3 weeks." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm not even like..."
Yikes.
I'm not even in shape or anything. Like, you can't just spring a fight in Brazil in 3 weeks on me. And then some things happened, and they kind of folded. I'm not sure what happened on the inside, but they let me out of the contract, and I had one more fight and then got into the UFC. But yeah, it was odd. It kind of went under quick. But
Okay.
I think they got a little greedy and it backfired on them.
Could be. But yeah, that was as like a follower of this blog. That was always such a mystery to me because
Yeah.
they never covered it. It was just like, man, like XFC doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore. And like, how did from the outside looking in, it seemed like it was such a good thing going.
But I think
Yeah.
the people who bought it put it on a pretty big channel over there.
Okay.
Because I would get YouTube videos and things in Portuguese where they
Yeah.
played. I guess it was on NBC over in Brazil.
Okay.
So they would play some of my fights over there. So
That's kind of surreal,
yeah.
right? You're like this
it's
international
a big.
name.
I forget the name of the channel, but yeah, they played. It's
That's
good
really
stuff.
cool. Yeah. That was the main one that I didn't want to circle back because like we talked
Okay.
about fighting and I was like, I don't want to interrupt like everything we're
Well, if
going
I can
like,
tag
yeah.
onto that, so what happens if somebody pulls out? Like, is there like insurance or a safety valve or something, so where you're not just completely screwed?
No, that's the
No.
unfortunate
Wow.
part. So that's that type of thing is like hours and hours worth of talks, but we still need a laborers type union and things to protect fighters. But no, I mean, if a fighter pulls out and they can't find another fighter to fight you on short notice, then you're just out of luck. So that kind of happened to me with this most recent fight. I was supposed to be on the June 22nd card in Greenville, South Carolina. They said, hey, we had a fight fall off. It's in 5 weeks, but do you want the spot? And if you do, we'll find you an opponent. I said, yeah. I wanted on that card originally anyway. So, okay, we'll find you an opponent. Well, they couldn't find me an opponent. Like 4 different guys said no. So then they're like, all right, sorry. I'm like, man, I'm already 2 weeks into a training camp here,
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that they wouldn't be able to find somebody to fight. I mean, my division is the toughest and biggest in the UFC, so
Absolutely.
they were basically like, oh, sorry, we'll try to rebook you again. I'm like, all right, well, I've been hacking away in Charlotte for the last 2 weeks. And you spend money. We're contractors, too, so I spend money on those training camps and
Certainly.
Yeah.
You're away from your family.
away from my family and things
Yeah.
like that. So, but they did rebook me for August 3rd. I just don't know. I
Okay.
have an opponent. He's from South Korea, but I don't know
Okay.
where it's at yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's been a funny situation. There's been a lot going on lately, but originally the fight was in Russia.
Okay.
So then they were saying, oh, it's not in Russia anymore because we're having trouble with the government, but it's probably going to be in Europe. So then they came back about 3 days ago. They're like, well, it's not in Europe anymore. It's going to be in the UK. And I was like, all right.
You're getting
And then
closer and closer to home.
The same day, they were like, oh, it's not in the UK anymore. It's going to be in the US somewhere. And I'm like, man, don't give me any more updates until it's official.
That's right.
And then I heard maybe it was going to be in Tampa, but then somebody released a graphic with the wrong date saying I was fighting in China. And I was like, man, I just can't even
Yeah.
It's a lot of that's a roller coaster.
I've been
Yeah.
all over the world in my head in the last 2-3 days.
If
So-
it was in China, how early would you go over so you wouldn't feel lag?
I'd probably
or
have to go
something?
2 weeks early.
Okay.
Which would be a real drag, man, because you can't get the right food and
Yeah.
it's tough. I'd have to pack up like a cooler with 2 weeks worth of food with dry ice and all kinds. It'd be tough. I'd hate to fight in China.
Yeah.
Because I've been there recently and it's
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
Amazing
Yeah,
to do a vacation, not good to train.
kinda yeah. I went to Beijing.
Yeah.
And the air quality's real bad. The UFC took me over there as a guest fighter.
Okay.
In November of last year. So I got a free trip to Beijing, which is another, like I'm saying, I've traveled the world. I got a free trip to Beijing, got to visit the Great Wall of China,
Yeah.
all on the UFC's expense. So,
It's incredible.
I mean, walk on the Great Wall of China is something I never imagined.
Yeah.
But so I've been to Beijing, and let's just say I'm not excited about ever fighting in China.
Okay.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on, man.
Yeah,
This was
thanks,
this was
Scott.
so much fun.